Hey, good morning everyone. Welcome back to another segment of Outpost Review. I took a short little clip of that because I thought that was kind of strange and unique. I don't believe I've ever seen that before in my life. I've lived in the north and I've never seen that happen. Of course, what's happening is the snow is melting and it's coming off, but it's still cold enough to where it doesn't fall, and yet underneath, when the sun is heating it up, the water is coming down, and since it's curling around, it's slowly dripping out to the edge, and then it's actually growing horizontal. I think that's absolutely nuts. Of course, that's not going to happen when I get a porch on here, you know. But, well, it may still happen, but not up against the house like that. But I thought that was kind of unique, and I wanted to show you that because that's the strangest thing I've ever seen. Generally, it'll come over and fall straight down, but this is kind of curving around, and I thought, you know, I've just got to take a video of that because I've never seen that happen before. Well, now we're up here at the outdoor kitchen. And of course the sun, in the wintertime, it really rides low on the horizon. So this side is melting probably 3 times faster than this side right here, because the sun actually sets over there and doesn't normally, to the best of my knowledge, actually get to this side of the roof. Of course, when it's heating up on this side, it's letting loose at the peak, and of course it's gradually coming down. But I mean, this side over here is kind of crazy because this too is actually in a half moon shape. It's still very hard, but it is melting and coming down and creating that curve, which, you know, to my knowledge, I haven't seen that before. Of course, it's been a long time since I lived in the north, and this is really kind of strange weather that we're having here in Tennessee, because normally, I mean, today it was 23 degrees. Normally, you know, we're hovering right around freezing, a little bit below, maybe the really high 20s. But I think that this is the 4th or 5th snow that we've had too, so this is highly unusual. And I think this last one was like about 5 inches. We don't normally get that. I guess for the last 20-25 years maybe, I've lived, you know, somewhere in East Tennessee, not here actually until the last year and a half. I've been working on the homestead here, but we haven't had but an inch or 2 at the most. So the seasons have really changed. Let me get you a shot of the back of the cabin here. Check that out. Is that not the coolest thing? It's different. Like I say, I've not seen that happen before. I do have a fire going in there, but that triple wall insulation really does a great job, because you can see it's not even melting and it's been going for about an hour. So it's doing a good job. It's doing what it's supposed to do. Well, I'm going to go in there and check the fire before I actually get busy and start working. And what I thought I would do is I'd take the opportunity to answer some more questions that a lot of you guys have. This is a forum where I'm able to do that, and I appreciate all the comments, but like I've said many times before, you know, there's getting to be so many subscribers now and comments coming in, especially the amount of videos that we're turning out, that it's hard to get back to you all personally, you know, individually. So this is the forum that my son and I decided to use in order to answer a lot of those questions. So I'm going to pick up the camera, we'll go inside, check on the fire, and we'll see if we can't answer some of those comments. You know, somebody commented, they said that they seen all the tracks when I was doing the little property tour. They seen all the tracks around, said that it looked like I had a bunch of dogs. Those were actually deer prints. Smokey does not go down that far. That was a new venture for him. There's been a lot of hunting dogs recently and I don't know where they're from, but they're running something. I don't know if they're running deer, possum, you know, rabbit, because they've never got within sight where I could actually see them. But when they're running, there sounds like there's 3 or 4 of them. When they're running, he's just listening. He's being very quiet. He hangs around me really close because I don't know if he feels like he's intimidated because there are so many that, you know, he might get jumped on. I did recently take him somewhere because I had to go out of state, and he actually spent the night, but he came back with some scars on his forehead. So I believe that maybe some dogs had attacked him, or he was playing really rough and ran into something. But he's got 3 or 4 different spots above his right eye that the hair is missing. So not really sure what happened. I don't believe that I'll do that again because, like I say, I'm not really sure. You know, I would hate to think that, you know, he got traumatized in some way. But anyway, it didn't affect his personality, and he's still a beast. He's a monster. And when we come up here, he's starting to learn, you know, because a lot of times he sleeps on the way out of here. And he's starting to learn that when we start leaving the main road and getting on the bumps, that we're getting close to the outpost. And that's all I've got to say is outpost. And he starts barking. And sometimes it's like he'll get right up close to my ear, because normally he lays in the back seat. He'll get right up close to my ear and he'll start barking. I'll be like, okay, we'll be there shortly, you know. And he's going nuts because he knows when he gets here that he has all of his things to play with. I won't mention some of the words that I use because he's going to jump up. He's actually laying down right now. So I can actually make these, get these comments out, you know, without him being all over me. But he's got his things to play with out here. And, you know, of course, the snow, he loves the snow, and he gets out and he starts running and twisting and turning, you know, and kicking up and wanting me to throw sticks and things like that. So he's a monster for sure. But anyway, I love him to death. This morning he actually turned over at my place. I have a little thing that you put wax in, you know, that's scented, and he was over there pilfering around because he's done this once before and got scolded for it. But he was over there and he tipped it over, and some of the wax got on his paw. It didn't hurt him, I don't think. It just scared him. But he got scolded again. So I don't quite think that he'll do that. You know, like, you know, when you're a kid, you know, mom says the stove's hot, and, you know, you don't believe her, and then you touch it and you feel it and it's hot and you learn. So I think today he learned. But anyway, yeah, love him to death, but he's still just a big puppy and he is into everything. But anyway, yeah, those prints down there, there was a lot of deer tracks, and, you know, we do have a lot of coons around this area, and some of them are really big. I had set up a game camera, I don't know, I guess it was 3 or 4 years ago. I had a feeder, and what I did was I used a metal post, stuck it in the ground, a piece of galvanized, I think it was 2-inch galvanized pipe, stuck it in the ground up to about maybe 4 feet. And, well, no, I don't think it was quite 4 feet, maybe 3 feet. And I built a box on top where I could put corn in and feed the deer. And because when I grew up here, there wasn't any deer in this area. People would just hunt them out, and then when I got old enough to start hunting, I would always have to travel to another county because we didn't have any deer here. But as I got older, probably when I was around 40 years old, that generation may have sold the property that they inherited and they moved off. Well, anyway, their deer started migrating back into this area, so we now have a pretty good deer population. And then when I was building that other cabin, I was out there working one day, actually hewing the beams that I had put in the cabin to hold the roof up. And I was out there working, and all of a sudden I heard this gobble. And I stopped and I listened, and because I was kind of getting into turkey hunting at the time, and I ran in the house and I got my collar and I came out and I shook it, you know, and it gobbled, of course. That's, you know, what it sounded like. And then he returned the call. I did it again, he returned the call. that's when we started getting turkeys migrating back into this area too. And that was in 1996, 97 when I built that other cabin. So within the last 20 years, okay, or so, we've started to get big game. Other than bears and hogs, we've always had those, but we started getting a migration of big game back into this area. So, you know, if push came to shove and everything went to pot, you know, in the world or in the country, you know, I could actually live out here. There's enough property that I've got, you know, where I can cut firewood, I can have heat. You know, we're going to work on the power. We've got the big game back here now. I grew up hunting rabbits, you know, those are good to eat certain times of the year. The venison, the turkey, we're going to get chickens, you know, have the eggs and then have the meat from the chickens too. So, you know, I'm in an area, a sustainable area that I could actually make do. You know, we could get water from the creek if we needed to, you know, we could heat it up and make it potable. So, you know, this is I kind of grew up this way, and then of course, you know, I guess my generation got used to having everything microwaved and power, you know, just the flip of a switch and stuff like that. But the older I get, I find myself kind of gravitating back towards, I guess you would say, my roots. Kind of grew up on the farm here. At that time, we had about 200 acres together with my uncle and my dad and my grandfather. Of course, my grandparents raised my sister and I, and we had cattle here. We always raised hogs. I think we always generally had about 25 or 30 hogs, and we would kill 2 a year. Our freezer would always be full. We had chickens. We actually had ducks and peacocks and guineas, and I don't really like the guineas. I don't like hear that chatter that they make all the time, but the peacocks, they were wonderful. And the ducks, you know, we used to have these great big huge eggs. A lot of them were double yolked. But that's how I grew up. I grew up cutting wood for firewood, even though my grandfather's home, when we moved from Michigan down here, he actually had central heat put in. We didn't have an air conditioner. I grew up with windows up and a fan in the window. And I pretty much lived my whole life like that, working outside. Even when I get in my truck to go home in the summertime here, I kind of refrain from turning the air conditioning on because I think it's cold. I just roll the window down and let that wind hit me and I'm good to go. But anyway, my point is that, you know, I find myself kind of gravitating back towards how I was grown or how I was raised. And there's something about this lifestyle, you know, there's some work involved in it because everything is not, you know, automatic. But the satisfaction that you get and the pleasure and the being out here in the peace and the tranquility, you know, it just brings joy to your heart and it just calms your soul. And, you know, I wouldn't trade it for all the modern conveniences that there are. You know, some people, and I think it's what you get used to, you know. When I was growing up, you know, I was used to that. I didn't know any different until I got married and kind of moved off. I mean, we had some modern conveniences. We had electricity. But like I say, we raised our gardens. We actually raised about 4 every year. 3 of them were for my grandfather's policyholders because he was in the insurance business. And when it come harvest time, we would gather all of the vegetables and everything. And every day he would load his vehicle, the trunk. And when he would go to collect, because he actually ran a debit, when he would go to collect from the policyholders, he actually would open the trunk and he would pass out vegetables to all of them. And that's kind of where the giveaways came from for our channel, because he was a really good businessman. And not that we're trying to run a business, you know, it's turning into that because there's so many people now that are following the channel and stuff. But I told my son, you know, I said, my grandfather, you know, gave stuff away, and we thought it would be a good idea to do the same thing. And so that's where the idea for the giveaways came from, because the policyholders supported him, and in return, he supported them, with gifts and blessings from the garden that we had. And, every month, we consider it a blessing to give back to you guys for all the support that you give us and viewing the channel and all the nice comments and, a lot of the gifts that we've received through the mail. We don't expect anything like that, but we certainly do appreciate that, and we want you guys to know it, and so that's why we do what we do. Had another guy write, how funny it is that nature replenishes itself. Actually, it says, isn't it funny how fast the forest reclaims itself? Old pastures littered with trees and underbrush. We have opened things up, and then we leave, and you wouldn't know what we had done in a few years. Isn't nature wonderful? Being a woodsman, I've noticed this over the years of observation. You guys take care. Yeah, it gets crazy because this place where I had taken you on the property tour, other than showing you that really steep, huge mountain and the hollow down there where I cut all those trees, this was all rolling hills and all green pasture. I've got some video that my grandfather done with an 8mm movie camera, and of course we sent it off, and there was probably 4 hours worth of video total putting them all together. Those are the videos that we used to sit down. He had a projector, and he had a little thing, the 8mm movies on the reel, and he could splice them together, and we would sit and watch, things that he had filmed probably since the 1950s. He was the only one in the family that had a video camera, and a projector. Of course, there was no audio with it, but still, we would sit, and it's getting kind of hot, we would sit and watch those videos. And so probably about 10 years ago, my cousin and I had inherited all the movies, and I put them all together, and we sent them off, and they actually put them on DVD. And so anyway, yeah, that was it was really great to be able to watch things that had happened, when I was growing up, that had happened about 10 or 20 years before my time. So, and these videos that I'm shooting here, a long time from now, the grandkids and their grandkids and so forth, they'll be able to go back and watch what we've done up here at the Outpost. And so it's kind of like, leaving a legacy. But anyway, yeah, it's really funny how nature replenishes itself, in things that you do. It just takes a few years, and sometimes you don't even recognize what you had done, because nature has a way of, just reclaiming the area that maybe you have been in. And just like all these trees that have grown up here now, you wouldn't have known that. Somebody wanted to know if Patrick or Jennifer were going to build out here. I've heard Jennifer mention it before. I'm not so sure that her husband would be keen on the idea, but Jennifer had mentioned about building a place out here and moving. It's different than living in town. I mean, I could pay to have power up here, and we could dig a well and have water, but there's still, it's a little bit different because you don't have cable out here. If you want television, you have to get satellite. Of course, I haven't had television for 10 years. Where I'm at, I just have internet, and I just mainly watch YouTube. That way I can select what I want to watch, because I never did like commercial television and all of the frequent commercials. It's different than YouTube. I could actually skip the commercials if I want to, and they're not quite as long. So yeah, I mean, I don't ever see Patrick moving up here. He may, later on when they get older, they may kind of gravitate, because they did grow up partly here when they were young kids. But who knows? That remains to be seen. My life, I have to live it. This is where I choose to live it, so that's what's happening. I have to shut those doors just a little bit because it's kind of getting warm in here. Somebody else said that you make the point of saying thanks for watching and how much you appreciate the support. How about thank you to you and all for the hard work placed in the sharing? We do. We appreciate that very, very, very much. And that's one reason that we do the giveaways, because we can't thank you guys enough for all of the support that you give us. And we look forward every month to those giveaways. And when we started the other channel, I told my son, I said, we're going to give away on this channel too, because if it wasn't for you guys, I'm having to kind of push some of this back up under there, those coals. If it wasn't for you guys, this channel wouldn't be anything. So regardless of how many channels we ever had, we're going to be giving stuff away, because we really appreciate all of you guys and all of the work that you do in sharing the channel with your family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, and things like that. And I've mentioned it before, we really look forward to the channel growing so that the giveaways grow too. We're doing what we can to give back to you guys. We're building the homestead here, and it's a lot of it is paid for, especially the lumber, but the other things that we have to have, and the hardware, and the windows, and the concrete, and the nuts and bolts and things like that we use here, and all the different things that I had to buy for the compost toilet, just everyday things, it runs into quite a bit of money, but still we want to give back to you guys, and we try to find a way and means to be able to do that. So thank you guys so much for all of the support, like I say all the time, and all the sharing and everything that you guys do to help us. And in return, like I say, that's the reason we do the giveaways, because it pleases our heart so much for what you guys mean to us. Somebody also said, do you set and sharpen your own blades? No, I don't. I do know that Norwood does sell a sharpener, but it's right about $1,000. I can get 10 blades locally made for $130. Those 10 blades, one blade will cut about, on an average, 4 trees. Doesn't really matter how thick or thin that I cut them. It will, like I say, on the average, it will cut about 4 trees. So out of those 10 blades, I can cut 40. All right. I would be able to, if I spent $1,000 to get that sharpener, okay, if 10 blades will cut 40 trees, then that would be 400 trees that I can actually cut. I don't ever see myself cutting that many trees. I can't remember. I think I cut about 50 trees for the structure itself. Okay, I'm talking about the post and beam. Then I think I cut up probably another 40 or 50 trees to get all of the material that I've got for the 2x10s and the 2x6s and the 2x4s and things like that. The outdoor kitchen, I didn't cut a whole lot there. I maybe just trimmed the top and the bottom side because it was all twisted and turned, and I just used 2 level sides. The compost toilet, there wasn't that much wood involved in it either. So, I would still have another probably 300 trees to cut. And at the time, I just, I couldn't afford it because I am on a fixed income, and I just didn't feel like I could afford, buying that. Now, I do have a friend down the road. They do have one. It's by another company, but they think that they can get, they have to have a certain cam to go in there because of the setting that's on the teeth for different sawmills. So he said that if he can get the right cam, then he could sharpen the blades that I've got. But no, I don't sharpen my own. I know that some people can use a Dremel tool and do that, but honestly, I'm so busy and they don't cost that much. I would just prefer to just, go get some and be on about my business and cutting the material and building and so forth. So no, I don't sharpen my own blades. Somebody says, how does it work for insurance on your buildings because you're in an unrestricted area? You can still get insurance on buildings. The other house that I built, I had insurance on it. But, you know, as of yet, I don't have any insurance up here. I can get an adjuster. You know, there are private companies that will insure just about everything if you have the money to pay for it. I don't know what it's going to cost to get insurance on this place. That's something that I do need to look into pretty soon, because I'm getting enough buildings out here. You know, if something happened, it would be a terrible loss. So, you know, I not only need to get the insurance on the buildings, but, you know, content insurance as well. Kind of like the sawmill, you know, and the outdoor kitchen, even though there's not a whole lot up there, I'm sure that I could find a company that would insure it, you know, like I say, if I have the money to pay for it. So that is something that I need to look into pretty soon. Somebody also mentioned that they're wondering why that so very few people use geothermal heat. I had actually thought about that. I thought about digging a great big section of this bank out. I thought about putting tubing in there, and I thought about venting that into the home. That way in the wintertime, you know, you do have the ability to close that off. In the summertime it would cool by just putting, you know, the circulation of the air, as long as you got both ends that are free, because that, you know, the earth kind of maintains a temperature of about 50 degrees. I think around, it's like 4 foot and below. I thought about doing that. I also thought about, I watched one segment where this guy had used a compost. He had a big square, probably 4 or 5 foot square, and it was about 4 foot deep, and he had just packed and packed and packed a lot of the leaves that he had picked up around the area, and he packed that in there, and as it began to compost and break down, on the inside of his greenhouse was probably, oh, I don't know, maybe 8 foot wide and 12 feet long. He cut a hole in the boards. Basically, let's say that this was his structure right here. He had the compost area right at the end of the building. So on the inside of the building, he took one of the boards off of the building itself, because the compost area was right up against it, and he took one of the boards off, and he used a thermometer, an infrared thermometer, and when he stuck the thermometer up to the lower section of that compost where he removed the board, he was reading, now this was like, it was up north somewhere, and I think it was like 20 something degrees outside, and it had some snow like we've got right now. It was reading like 91 degrees in one area, it was reading 96 I think on another, maybe 93 in the middle, but he was actually getting heat from that compost into the greenhouse, and he said it's relatively warm in here. Of course, they just had plastic up like we do on the house right here. Maybe think about things like that where when I build a greenhouse, and that's what I'm going to do, is probably use some of this plastic that I take off the cabin here and use it to build, you know, a shed type greenhouse. Might even put 2 end to end, you know, it just depends on how much I can get in there. But build a greenhouse where I can use some of that, or use that same method, you know, to heat the greenhouse. I mean, that would be kind of cool. It would be free. I wouldn't even have to go in there and start a fire. I could just let the compost, you know, heat the inside of the greenhouse. So that was a cool idea. So that's something that, you know, you might could check that out on YouTube. I don't know how you would search for it, but compost heating greenhouse or something to that nature. But check that out, because I don't know how I stumbled on it, but it was a pretty cool idea. Well, hey guys, that's about all the time that I've got for today. I really need to get the tools out and get busy. I'm going to try to get all the battens run down to the end there. One of the windows that I had set in here the other day, I actually had to take it back out because it's made differently. I had 3 windows that I bought, all 3 foot by 4 foot, and it was made different, so I had to take it back out. Those were the only 2 that matched, so I put those in. I'm going to have to go take it back and swap it. But I forgot to stop by this morning and get the 2x6s to frame around the door. So what I'm going to do is just continue the batten zone. I'll omit the area around that window down there so that when I do get it, then all I have to do is set it in and run the short ones, and all of the front will be done. So anyway, I do appreciate you stopping by. I hope that this helps in answering some of the questions. Like I say, I kind of like this forum to be able to get back to you guys and answer a lot of the comments that you make, and it's just a whole lot easier than trying to respond to everybody individually, because that's turning into a major job. But we do appreciate all the comments. Keep them coming. Otherwise, we don't know what you all are thinking. And sorry that, it's getting out of hand where we're not able to get back to each and every one of you personally. But if you keep the comments coming, that gives us stuff to talk about here on the review channel and on the streams that we're doing. So we certainly do appreciate that. We hope each and every one of you have a great day. Thank you so much again too for sharing our content with other people. We can't thank you enough. We hope, like I said, that you have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you back up here at the Outpost again next time.